still hard to kill.
So moved.
All right, there's a motion for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, this brings us to item number 5, public comments. I see our member of the public's here for a topic, so I'll assume there's none. We'll move on to item number 6, request to sell from Carmen Giles. Page 3 of your agenda.
She done this before, Doug?
Yes, yeah, they've been doing it for a while. I think last year was the first year we made them kind of go through this whole process of filling out the forms and all that. But, yep, they've been doing it for a while.
Is this really just like having an open-ended permit as opposed to like a limited time? I mean, it's limited for the summer, but sort of like a one-off every time they...
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're supposed to put in exact dates or if they plan to be there the whole summer. I mean, typically they're there the whole summer. And the only other issue we've ever had is that they plug into power and they use our power all summer long. So that's kind of where the whole permitting thing came from in the first place. But other than that, we've had no issues with anything. But they're not allowed to just store it down there all summer long.
Come in for the day and then leave again.
That's what they're supposed to do, or the weekend, for a tournament, things like that.
Is this the second or third year?
I think this is the second year with the permitting. I think they've been doing it longer, but we kind of just came up with this last year, I think.
It's a nice option.
Any,
As long as they're not stepping on toes with anybody, trying to fundraise or anything like that, I'm okay with it.
I think it's a nice option at the tournaments, in addition to the concessions.
Yeah, and it's a different product, so it doesn't
Yeah.
compete.
okay, is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that brings us to item number 7, Aspen Ridge Development. In the park, pages 4 through 9 in your agenda.
So these are a couple different options on the splash pad, is that how you read it, Evan?
Yeah, and I don't know, Russ, if you just want to,
Yeah,
Give
please,
up.
Russ.
Yeah.
come on.
You're-
Yeah.
High level, Russ.
yeah,
You gotta push the button.
Good evening, Board. My name's Russell Atkins with Christensen Development Partners. We're pleased to present to you a park design. We've gone back and forth with quite a bit, actually, and have talked with staff quite a bit as well to make sure that not only are we getting what everybody's wanting out of the park, but that the standards of the construction meet the standards for the city and that which you've come accustomed to. And so going back and forth with that and looking at our original budget line item, we had set across $600,000 for the improvements to the park area to be done. And looking at those and watching prices go up, we've settled in on a proposal for a splash pad at the northwest corner of the park. We put both options. They're both in there. Naturally, kind of like what my kids always said, they like the expensive one. And so when you take a look at the design of the park, we're favoring the more expensive park that, I don't know if it's first or second, but do they have the cost estimate as to, Devin? Okay. Well, it's the nice looking one. In there. Sure.
I'm assuming
Sure. I
it's
was
the
trying
one-
to be
it's
funny. I know
it's-
it.
It's the one with the rain barrel, I would
The
assume.
big,
Yes,
big
correct.
water tower looking thing?
Yes.
But not mechanical. Oh, was that the
And then, we do have the pickleball courts as well that are in there. And the research that we've done for maintenance cost and so forth, This actually has a sport court on the concrete slab where it's not painted with lines that require far more maintenance. That way, if somebody tears something up, it's easy to repair a couple of inserts versus having it fully repaired. And this is a local, I say local, it's a U.S. company out of Salt Lake City. We're told that supply them, so we don't have any supply chain issues or bridges getting stuck in Baltimore, wherever it is, trying to get some repair places. We've got a fairly nice layout for plants, trees, shrubs, as well from Earthscapes, who we use pretty much exclusively on our stuff, and they do a great job. And that area is also outlined, as well as a hard surface path that would go from the patio homes at the southeast part of the area all the way to and tying into the actual pickleball court area. And then we do have the, I always want to call it a bike path. I think they've changed the name of it, but there's a bike path on the north side of the park that's not part of the park improvements. It's part of the development improvements, but nonetheless it adds to connectivity for the residents to get around. And then there will be another 5-foot sidewalk that is part of the park improvements that would be on that western portion of that 3.5 acres.
Devin, did you have any comments at all about your work in coordination with Russ?
No, not at the, I mean, about the only thing I would say is, just so you guys are aware, I mean, it does not include a bathroom currently or a playground. So those are just a couple of things for I guess you guys to kind of mull over or not. But no, otherwise the rest of it, all the paths and the layout of the splash pad and the pickleball and everything look really good.
Does anybody have any comments or anything they want to start with?
Just to add a little bit more information, if I may.
Please.
When we started with the budgetary numbers, it was at $600,000 for the improvements with the park. I filled you in on that, but I didn't fill you in on what the cost estimate is based on what we're proposing with the nicer splash pad. It's a little bit larger, pickleball courts and all the things that we've laid out. It $670,000 is the current estimate, cost estimate that we have. What is not included in that Devin talked about was a standalone restroom, as well as connecting the pool equipment to the services. That's a small amount, but from the best I can tell, everything else is included in that number.
Thanks. Question for you, or Tammy, maybe you know, but the splash pad, is that a recycling system? Or is it a waste system where, I'm essentially asking, does the water get treated and reused
Yeah,
as
they,
what's proposed?
do you wanna talk about it, how it works?
Yeah, it has basically has a tank underground, and it just pulls out of that. So it'll reuse its own water. It'll obviously, with evaporation and things like that, it will use fresh water a lot. But for the most part, it's recycling its own water, so you will have to have treatment there also for that water.
All right. So is there ultimately, for these improvements, is there a, refresh my memory, is there a gifting agreement that these, when they're built, get handed over to the city, or what's in place for that?
Yeah, we were still working through some of those details as far as when the city would take over the maintenance part of it. So, with improvements like water and sewer, it's very outlined on when we take that over and how we take that over and warranty periods, that sort of thing. We've never really had a developer build a park before, so I think that's gonna be,
We don't
It'll be
want to
coming,
own
but-
this.
Yeah, I assume.
So-
Yeah,
We're more than happy to give it to the city.
no, thank you. So, I mean, I guess from my perspective, looking at it here, and I know it's gone through a number of gestations as you've figured out kind of what you want to do. From my perspective, this is going to operate as a neighborhood park, right? I mean, that's the intention. certain elements in neighborhood parks, and my concern right now, based on this proposal, from my perspective, I guess I would rather see a playground than a splash pad. While a splash pad is really nice, nice amenity, it's a nice additional amenity from my perspective. Playgrounds are kind of one of our standard features that we put in neighborhood parks. The extended life of those, as far as usability, especially depending upon the surface, is longer as a recreation amenity as opposed to a splash pad. So, I mean, just knowing how tight our budget is and that the developer is kind enough to put these improvements in place, I don't think that we'll be in a position to add a playground or a restroom anytime soon. So I personally feel like right now the splash pad would kind of handicap us from a recreation standpoint because we maybe only get 2-3 months of use out of it compared to at least a playground we get 6+ months depending upon what the weather is like and stuff. And splash pad makes the park a little bit more of a destination park than just a normal neighborhood park, which I think is fine, but you know, certainly it's going to draw more cars and more people and those kind of things, which I'm not sure that you would necessarily want right away until the neighborhood's established and in place. I think the bathroom part is probably something that, you know, you can debate whether or not neighborhood parks should even have bathrooms in them, but it's kind of a precedent that we've set, and something that we think is a nice amenity. And I think as long as, from a planning standpoint, as long as the sewer and water connections are kind of in place, so we don't have to do a bunch of tearing up later, I think that would be a good idea. I don't know if that has been in the discussions at all or not, but. Okay. So I guess from my perspective, I would just ask the board's opinion on playground versus splash pad. And, I mean, clearly we're just one of the sets of folks who have some input on this. Maybe you're really set on a splash pad, but I just question it. I think it's a nice addition to the playground, but it's not a good substitution for the playground.
I would agree with you, John. Just thinking of the amount of use it would get. Yeah, 3 to 4 months tops as far as a splash pad. Do you guys have like a plan of just playground? Of cost difference?
We went back and forth and looked at a lot of the different items. I can tell you from a developer's perspective and looking at the amenities that we're hearing are the most desirable to have in a neighborhood park, we're getting overwhelming support for the splash pad. Particularly when you're looking at some of the multifamily, some of the R2 and the R3 that are going in, it allows them to have amenities within the community where they then can come in and develop like the townhome site or the multifamily site. Financially speaking, with interest rates doing what they've done, it's making it very challenging for some of the multifamily guys to come in and make these communities pencil because they're having to use so much interest carry when you look at a project like Aspen Ridge. This has been something that has really spurred their interest, that it's money that in essence we're spending together versus them having to do for the amenities. So I would say that's the market research we've had, where a lot of people have seen that and like that, and kind of given the walkability that's going into the area, I think it will get used a lot. As far as costs go, to answer that question, I was really kind of shocked when we got back the pricings for that poured-in-place rubber. That's kind of what did it for us, you know, when we were looking at it, because from a developer standpoint, we were trying to, how do we do both? But when we saw those prices, it was just like, oh You know, cause if the bathroom is something that needs to be considered, and especially combining it, you know, with like the splash pad equipment room, if you will, will be $770,000 in a $600,000 budget. So, yeah, so looking at it that way, we as a developer looked at it, okay, what's going to fit the neighborhood? Now, we're not the park board, so you guys have far more experience at dealing with this as far as something that lasts for a while. We're on the front end. We get to come in, we get to build, we get to have fun, we get to sell, and then, you know, we're off to the next one. So, but from us, I think looking at the splash pad is far more important to the neighborhood than what the jungle gym playground equipment would be.
I think, yeah, I mean, you know your potential clients and developers better than we do. I'm not saying that the splash pad's not a nice amenity. It just, the dilemma is that for 8 months out of the year, it looks like a turned off splash pad, right? And from a recreation standpoint, we'll be getting the pressure of why isn't there a playground? And I'll guarantee you, it'll be in social media in about 15 minutes after the park's open and we start heading into fall and the splash pad's turned off. Now, that's not necessarily your issue. I just want to make sure that everyone's cognizant of it, that, you know, if we do go ahead and you build the splash pad, that we'll have a lot of pressure to put a playground in there pretty quickly. And as you just said, that's probably a minimum of a $350,000 investment just for a basic playground. So we just need to be prepared for that. And right now, the way our budget sits, we're not. And so just want to make sure everybody's on the same page.
And I could see with Sunrise being nearby, that certainly the families at Aspen Ridge can go that direction to get a playground. And just like those families can go here to get a splash pad. But certainly that creates a potential issue crossing the road, yeah. So I see the pros and cons, but I still agree with John, just the playground equipment would get more use, but that's my opinion.
Didn't we talk about, is there a way to get to McCarty? Because that's pretty close too, once the houses go in, and there's a pretty good playground there. It's a long ways.
It is kind of a long ways. I've been trying to work on some of those sidewalk easements with the property owners. I have one that is not too interested in helping us out, but I feel like we have a couple other options. I just need the time to be able to do it, so let me get through this bidding season for projects and then I'll be able to work and spend more time on that.
But are you talking along Aspen?
Behind Aspen, along the river.
Oh.
That way we can utilize the bridge right there by McCarty. They can just cross the bridge and get into the park.
And, you know, we will have the school playground, but if I'm living in your development, and I'm sending a kid on a bike, I'm not sending them over Aspen. So that's my concern.
And the same thing applies to the point about if the splash pad becomes a destination again, kids crossing the street. I would also say that the pickleball courts would make it a destination as well, except people drive to that. And I think that's something the town really needs too. I think that's a great add to this park, regardless of whether it's splash pad or playground.
As Russ was saying, it fits in really well with the potential housing types that are going to be out there. And yeah, that's a no-brainer. Those aren't going to be lit, are they?
No, we've received as many requests not to have them lit for
Yeah.
people that are looking. I think we've got 5 custom homes that are going under construction in that cul-de-sac, or will be here very soon. And that's one of the things they requested. We preface everything with everybody we talk to that, we're still in negotiations with the city, but that's not on our proposal. There has been some request for some lower lighting in the park area, maybe for more of a security setup. But we as the developer would not like to see something that would encourage after-hour prolonged usage of the pickleball courts.
Yeah, no, I was just asking. So, I mean, because it's one of those things, if you're gonna have it, it needs to be right away and not come after the fact, usually.
But then that's probably another 200,000 plus to do that. So,
Yeah, certainly, it's a chunk of change, so I just wanted to make sure.
So Russ, I was really excited when I saw this, the splash pad thing, because I just thought, it's unique. I really liked it, just as something different, but I'm struggling with having that, as John said, and not the playground equipment, because I was thinking we were gonna, of course, you dream big, right? That we could have it all, and I totally get your budget, and we appreciate everything that you're doing, so, like, if we said, Russ, we've got to have playground equipment, where would that put you? Would you have to go back and talk? I mean, what would that do to your plans, I guess?
Well, I hate to be so linear in thinking. It all boils down to the budget at the end of the day. And naturally, there's always wiggle room that you have in any project of this size that we take a look at. I would have to evaluate how much that would be. If we're already, $670,000 as it exists, and then I think our playground equipment was closer to the 200,000 with the port in place. But Devin, I don't know if that met all of the check marks that you were looking for as well. I don't know I think I took those standards that we got and I gave it to the group, and then when the money came back, I don't think we looked at the playground equipment with that same look. So I'd have to look at that. It gets pretty rough taking on that much extra cost. I will tell you, we did have one of our consultants did mention a combo playground and splash pad where you're using some of the same playground type equipment, only part gets wet. So if we looked at maybe some of the toys used within the splash pad, even though it's off, doesn't necessarily mean kids wouldn't be able to utilize the area as a play area. And because I'm guessing people across the country are realizing the same thing that you're mentioning tonight, that it's nice to have them, but if you only get 3 months out of them versus 8 months, that might be something else. But I've not priced that.
You seen that, John?
Yeah, I know I have, and that's a really good comment. And I guess, Russ, I don't want you to mistake me. I'm not saying that it's got to be both. I realize that
I said that.
well, no. Well, maybe Barb did. She can't. She's elected. I'm just appointed. I think in the end, from our standpoint, we want to have a playground in the park, right? I mean, in the end. Now, whether that's coming through us or through you, that's all that I'm trying to work towards right now. And if it's not through you, which I don't see you being able to add another $250,000 into your park and being like,
That's
it's
a bit
okay.
steep. Yes, yes.
Yeah, and I think that would be the cheap version. Again, I'm just making sure that, then we've got $300,000 worth of stuff that we're going to have to plan for in the future. I think it's okay for us to live without the bathroom for the time being, and we can work on that in the future. It's just the playground.
So our issue is that we put together a CIP list every summer for our big ticket items. And at this point in time, and we have 2 council members sitting out here, so they can hear this too, and they know it. But we have nothing in the 25, 26, and on for capital improvements, unless we have really good sales tax numbers and we get some money back from the council, so that's our dilemma,
Sure.
so.
And so, if, you know, if the agreement is to move ahead with the splash pad, chances are there won't be a playground in there anytime in the near future. And we just need to be prepared for that, because I suspect as that development fills up and you get more roads out there, that will be a topic of criticism. The good news is that there's gonna be a great park there and it's all planned and, you know, it's being worked on, which puts us way ahead of the ball game compared to normal, so.
I would like it in this summer. So don't need to bore you with all the details, but the plan, if you will, from our ownership group, is to get all of those amenities and have a fairly significant showing at the Parade of Homes in the fall. And then we're actually giving away golf carts for people who are buying up front as an incentive to get things moving. So there's a lot of fun, exciting things that we're doing, and we felt it was worth the expenditure of getting the park in now, so that people could see that vision instead of just looking at it for the future. So if I could have it in August, I would.
Well, first of all, thank you. We are very appreciative of anything that you would like to do and donate or develop on behalf of the city. This is just a wonderful, wonderful thing that you guys are doing for us. So we are greatly appreciative of that. I think, you know, if this is your plan and you are donating it, we really shouldn't look the gift horse in the mouth, really. I do agree with John that a park is what people down the road are going to look for. They, you know, it's great to have a splash pad. Well, would I like a splash pad down? Sure, that would be awesome. Long term, it's probably not what the community would utilize most. That being said, a splash pad is great. The pictures, everything that you were doing is wonderful. The pickleball courts are going to be used so much that, and the green space and the trees and all, it is a wonderful, wonderful thing that you were doing. I do agree that, you know, we are going to have pushback, maybe not this year, maybe not next year, because the splash pad will be new and everybody will be excited to use it. But within 5 years, we are going to hear, hey, you know, we need a playground. You know, you have all these houses that are now developed and sold and we're living here. And so that is something that if, you know, we give the approval to go ahead with this, I think we need to bring up and make sure that council and the mayor is aware that in 5 years, we're going to need money. This is going to have to be done. It's going to have to be put on our CIP list and have to be planned for because it will be needed. So the bathroom, I think, you know, we've kind of set the standard, and if you're going to have a splash pad, people are going to want a place to change. Otherwise, they're going to be peeing in the splash pad. And, you know, I know it's treated water, but still that's just gross, in my opinion. So I think we need to address that with the council sooner rather than later about finding money to incorporate with their building while they're doing it, put in a bathroom. It would be cheaper to do it now while they're doing it instead of waiting till next year and then try to find the money to do it. So I think that is something that we need to bring up with council about doing the bathrooms. But that's just my opinion, that we need to put that on our CIP list for about 4 or 5 years and let everybody know that it's going to be needed. But we are greatly appreciative. This is a wonderful thing, so thank you.
It's our pleasure. We've really enjoyed working with the city and being a partner with you guys, not only at this project, but, you know, we've got future aspirations to do more, so.
Well, so if the consensus is to move forward with a splash pad, there's two different splash pads in your packet. One is obviously cheaper than the other one. And when has his cost estimate of that 670, which is already 70,000 over, that doesn't include the building that's needed for the equipment for the splash pad or the bathrooms. And so he's certainly going to be over budget as well. Park fees, since he does have the TIF, it's kind of been the consensus that he had to pay park fees for it. And park fees are $1,000 an acre. And then it's also $250 on the building permit side, so home builders pay that, developer does not pay that. And that's per dwelling unit, so if there's like a townhome or something, they pay 500, not the 250. So, you know, there's a lot of kind of estimates in here on how much he would actually pay in park fees. He's already paid a little over 20,000. We could waive those park fees, which would help him out, and that would be about 65,000. And so that would be one of those ways of finding the money right away and making that recommendation to council where we have an agreement put together and where you're waiving those park fees, and then that gets us the nicer splash pad, the bathroom, but you're still gonna be over budget. But at least it's a compromise there. And that would be staff's recommendation.
So staff would recommend doing the splash pad opposed to playground equipment.
It would be staff's recommendation that if you go with a splash pad, that we waive park fees, so we have the nicer splash pad in the bathroom.
I don't know, I struggle with it, cause I think the unique part of it is cool. That's very cool, and if your people are saying they would like that. We've set some standards though as to our park system. I agree with you, Mindy, I think you gotta have a bathroom. I don't, with little kids, I just, yeah, they're running someplace. Can we come up with money for playground equipment down the road? I don't know. Our CIP list is pretty long, but I mean, if it moves up to the top of the list.
One other thing is, you know, we always strive for that park, a neighborhood park within half a mile of every resident. Sunshine Park and McCarty Park take care of this development, so they're both within half a mile.
Yeah, I think no matter which way we go, and there's a lot of green space on this drawing, which is great, you know, areas to run around for the kids and things, but whether it's a splash pad now and we're, you know, praying that someday we get the money for a playground, I don't know if the green space was intended to plot that in later or if that's just runaround space, but I'd hate to see them put in all these nice trees if in a few years maybe we would have to, I would just strategically make sure planning is done to accommodate future adds of a playground and a restroom if that's not going to be the initial plan.
Yeah, well, the restroom would have to be close to the splash pad if it's incorporated into that building or the equipment room. But yes, I mean, that might be a consideration, just to look at the trees up on that northern part, because we would put the playground equipment up there closer to the bathrooms. So maybe just look at the trees.
We have looked at a site plan and a grading profile as well, so that the slope to the site was conducive to not only future add-ons, but common play area for people. And
So John, as a landscape architect, you deal with this stuff all the time. What's been your thinking on the combo thing? Have you actually seen it used?
Yes, I mean, I think the combo thing's worth investigating if you're willing to look at it. I mean, I think it temporarily gives us some other recreation value beyond just the splash pad. But I don't want to, I mean, it's not my intent to design the park by committee, right? I mean, like, I want to reinforce what Mindy said. We're very appreciative of what you want to do. I just want to make sure that we know where the shortcomings are going to be as staff and as a board, that what kind of expectations there will be on us eventually and how it affects our planning. So, I mean, if we approve whichever version tonight to move ahead, there's just gonna still be things on our to-do list, right? So that's what I wanna make sure is clear in everybody's heads, especially the two gentlemen sitting in the back seats there at church. So it would be my opinion too, in this case, my take on waiving park fees, while I'm very appreciative of what they're doing, and I want to maximize what they're doing, from my perspective, I'm not willing to do that. Cause it sets a dangerous precedent. That stuff was put in place for a reason. Those fees actually haven't been increased in almost 15 years. So, from that perspective, I'll say it's a reasonable cost, right? I mean, and I know it's not whenever you're paying extra fees, but from my standpoint, it's something that hasn't escalated along with all the increased costs that we've seen over the last 5 years. So I would rather, if it's Russ's belief that the splash pad is the way that they want to go, great. I'm not going to debate that, but then it's probably going to have to be the lesser one, because I mean, they've got to do what they've got to do to get their facilities in place and open. And, we are the benefactor of it, and it'll be what it's going to be. I mean, we're going to live with it. And I just don't want to get on that slippery slope. So.
What do you think, Rick?
I hear what you're saying on the park, piece of it, but I do like the variety of having a splash pad, because we've looked into it many times throughout the years and haven't had that. And with our community growing, I think it is a nice enhancement, and there are playgrounds that people can get to. May not be the best when they're choosing to live on Aspen Drive, but they also know that they're going into that. So I'm a little bit torn on that. I do think the long-term plan should be that, but I do like the variety of the splash pad as well.
Awesome. Working our way up. Perfect. Like I said, I see the pros and cons of all of it. As Mindy and John pointed out, yeah, if the research says the splash pad is what people want, that's great. Again, I get concerned on, yeah, how long it's going to be for us to get the playground in, and then traffic along Aspen. But I mean, the bathroom would have to come in, and I think if we want to keep the fees and not set the precedent, then yeah, the cheaper version, if that gets us a bathroom, I'm good with that.
Yeah, I see both sides of it, and, I mean, I can support either plan. I do like the idea of an immediate bathroom, though. I think, for all the reasons, if it's gonna be a splash pad, that becomes pretty important. So we may have to cut some costs there in order to be able to do that. And, if there's gonna be 4 pickleball courts, it's not gonna be too long before, organized tournaments and things might get set up. And if you get people there all day, they're gonna need a restroom. And again, I just think strategically about the planting of the trees for future, someday when we have money, right, to put in the rest.
I guess I would need to take a look at a calendar. Again, where we're trying to hit a certain marketing date, and
So can I ask, what is your plan for the splash pad equipment?
Well, candidly, we were probably going to have to build a building to put it in, because that is part of your standards. And it was a slight oversight by Combined Pool and Spa when they put the cost estimate together. But at the end of the day, it adds to the bottom. You know, Tammy came over and we were looking at the scope and she pointed that out and I, well, okay, we're gonna have to do something there. You know, and it's not about as much splitting hairs over whether we build a room for the pool equipment or whether it, you know, we can't do the bathroom. The work here is trying to find something that meets everybody's needs, that everybody's happy with. And I hear you guys being appreciative and we're appreciative too. We want to be good partners here with you. And like I said earlier, your role and my role are so different. I get to come in at the beginning and everything's nice and new and fresh and we get to sell finished lots and move on. And, you know, that's how we make a living. And you guys have to put up with the people that move in and what they want, you know, down the road. So we do hear you. We just got to the end of the day where we looked at all the numbers and we said it's just too cost prohibitive to do it all. Because if we had a site plan that had the playground equipment in it, yeah, but the poured in place rubber was just,
It's like paving in gold.
you could have knocked me over when I saw it. I thought somebody hit the wrong number on the keyboard and of course Brian said, no, that's right.
And I apologize. It seems like we're kind of taking your legs out from under you. We didn't certainly mean that at all. But I did think that in my mind, that there was a playground equipment there. Is there anything that we could do? They have to build the building for the splash pad if they decide to go that route. Can we help with a little bit of the cost for the bathroom?
That would be where the park fees being waived would come in. So we're not really setting a precedence by waiving park fees in a park like this, because that park fee was kind of put in place for buying land for the park. And so he also has a TIF district with this, and so he's kind of allocated that 600,000 for the land. Anything above and beyond that, you know, would be him putting it in. So waiving the park fees is making sure that that money stays within this park. Because when he pays park fees, that's the money that's going into the general fund. It doesn't go into park board's fund. So yeah, there's a way to justify that to council to say, hey, we need this much money because this development has this much park fees, but it is still going to the general fund.
Welcome
So-
to a battle that was 20 years old.
So, just to restate what you said, if we choose to waive the park fees, that money could be used towards this park for something that we want that's beyond the plan.
Yes, that would be the purpose of it.
So we would have to make that recommendation to council, and they're the
Yes.
ones that would decide.
Council would still have to decide.
Does that make you feel any better or not?
Not really, because it's still a TIF, but I understand the logic, so. And ultimately, it's not our decision. There's a council and a city administrator who will have more say.
Well, I'll go out there. I will make, or we could debate this all night. I will make the recommendation to approve their plan as is, as shown for Christensen Park with the splash pad, waiving the park fees in order to assist with putting in the building and bathrooms, close to there, and make that recommendation to council.
There's a motion. Is there a second? Thanks, Lee. Any discussion on that?
We've made Russ stand up there forever.
Yeah,
He
thanks.
sit down.
Probably. Russ probably
Poor guy.
wants,
Yeah.
wants a drink or sits down.
And this is for, I'm assuming, the less expensive of the two splash pads?
Yes,
Yep.
the less expensive
Yep.
of
Well, I
the two.
think that's their call.
Well,
Yeah, I
Yes.
agree, that's up to the building.
that would be up to them, but
But
my interpretation would be the lesser.
But it will take the better one if you can swing it.
I think we like the larger one enough that we would go with the larger splash pad staff's recommendation was earlier, is if the larger splash park with a bathroom building, and then with some assistance in the park fees. And, you know, to reiterate, I think the TIF is at 600,000. With the bathroom, I think we're gonna be in the 780 to 790 range. So we're still spending far more considerable amount of money, but again, we're all in this together, but I understand the component of setting precedents, I do.
I would just add one comment during the discussion period that, money's always our issue. And our history on this board has been, when we can partner with an organization, it benefits everyone. And I certainly think that what Russ and his company are doing is just a reflection of that partnership.
All right, so there's a motion on the table to approve the plan with the splash pad and to waive the park fees in order to try to accommodate some of the budget oversight and having a building being part of the park project. All right, so we'll do a vote, and just to be clear, we'll just roll call the vote. So start with you, Al.
Aye.
Barb? John's opposed. Mindy? Oh, sorry. Adam, I'm looking at you. You couldn't visually see me looking at you. Lee?
Aye.
All right. Motion carries. We appreciate all your effort, Russ, in helping make this happen. So just please,
Gotta go.
yeah, make sure to work with Tammy and Devin kind of on some of the details of working out and finessing all that. So thank you.
So, the next two,
Yep. See ya. Thank you.
No speeding, chief.
so the next two items on the agenda were mine too. So if we could push the pollinator gardens to next month, but the shared use path ones, that's for the design work and the survey work for the bluffs and for the east side of town. Those proposals came back, so it was survey, design, DOT agreements, and environmental. Those came back at about 90,000. So we have 125 in the budget. So I'm asking that we use the other 35 to do repair work on our existing sidewalk, or our existing shared use paths.
So you need a recommendation on that?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Okay with you guys?
Yes. Okay. We'll work on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
See ya. They're going to
See ya.
a MAC meeting.
Yes. Have fun macking.
Yeah. Keep Gary in line, will you? Yeah.
All right. So, per Tammy's request, we'll kick number 8 to next month, and she can give us an update then. And you just heard the summary version of number 9, as far as taking some of the excess funding that exists and doing repairs for the sake of 35,000, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask the same thing.
It's-
What's that do for repair?
No, I mean, it's gonna depend upon whether she's fixing asphalt trail or concrete trail. So it'll kind of depend upon the spot, but that's a fair amount of fixes, so.
Even
She-
concrete, cause I
yeah.
take it that's gonna be way more expensive, right?
Yeah, it'll be more expensive. Well, it depends upon access and all that stuff, but that's a decent budget to do repairs, and it's certainly more than what we would do in any given normal year, so I think it's a wise way to go. I'm assuming she's got some priorities of spots where she wants to go, but we can work through those details, I guess. Cause as far as new stuff, it wouldn't get us very far, right? So that's probably the reason why she's thinking fixes.
What's the length that the 90K gets us? Do we know? I mean,
I don't know the answer to that. I suspect it's planning a whole section. So, but I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. Well, I guess I don't know when she has to decide.
Yeah. Just from a design standpoint, I would suspect, not knowing exactly what she's looking at, it'll cover what we need to cover and to do.
and what we thought was gonna cost 125, so coming in under budget,
She can brief us later on the repairs. So I think we need to keep moving forward on it, and I'd be glad to make a motion on that.
Thank you.
Okay.
So there's a
I'll second that.
motion and a second, to accept that the design services and use the excess budget for repairs. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, awesome. Well, you're wearing a tie, so there's gonna be no debate. Thanks, Adam.
I
Is
like
there,
those quick briefs, so
is there anything on item 10 that you wanna talk about? Or can?
No, you guys all got the, kind of the new list where we broke it down into groups? No, it's basically just what staff would like to do is prioritize these as best as you can.
Yeah, yeah.
Your homework is to get familiar with that list, so we're in a position to actually prioritize next month.
Yeah, and
Yeah, and I can send out another one now that we've talked about, I didn't wanna put anything on there for Aspen Ridge till we did that, but if we wanna talk about Aspen Ridge stuff, or Christensen Park, I should say, we can sure add that to it as well.
Please do.
And do you want the prioritization within these three categories? Is that the thought?
No, that's what Park Board kinda
Okay.
asked for last
So
time.
the overall,
we had 500,000.
See, Adam, thank you.
Adam, thank you.
I think it was, if we asked for 500,000, which was.
what would we do first? Yeah,
What would we do first? Yeah.
okay.
I think that was kind of our.
Yeah, and I appreciate you breaking it out that way. And
Yeah.
Oh,
It'll-
it's
Yeah.
rough, I mean, it's just kinda Tammy and I put our heads together and tried to come up with what we are, you know, without diving too much into stuff we don't know about yet, but it's gotta be give or take.
Well, now we have dollar values on all, where I know we were kinda shooting from the hip on some of them before, so this is a good list.
So I think that what we did tonight is what I wish would happen at the governmental level higher up a lot of times, compromise. I don't know that any of us are like totally happy.
No.
But he also is trying to compromise and help us out too. And we may, you know, we'll make it work, but. It was really good, yeah.
Well, and I think there'll still be some discussion about that building and bathroom, and if there is some extra sales tax, I suspect that's gonna have to come into the discussion, because the size of it and quantity of bathrooms and all that stuff is gonna be, I mean, they've got some homework to do still, and it's not entirely resolved, but at least the wagon, or the train's on the tracks.
But he was really good about it.
He's super good about it.
Really good about it.
So yeah, if you wanna add that on there, please, Devin, do, and then resend it out, and we'll
Yeah, I'll
cover
just,
that.
for a playground, I'll just kinda pull out a cost estimate of something we've done, you know, I can use what
250?
Aspen was supposed to cost, or
With Port in Place.
roughly, yeah. Yep, I mean, it won't be quite maybe that size, but something
I
similar.
think that's a good place to start.
Okay.
So,
Is Aspen bigger or smaller than Sunrise?
Bigger.
It is.
Yeah, Aspen's bigger than Tallgrass.
Oh,
So-
it is.
And that's where I,
Green spaces.
that's where I made the, the park or the playground?
The playground area.
Yeah,
It,
Aspen's is,
the new one that we're doing, that we're doing
Yep,
at Aspen,
Aspen's is
that's
very
bigger than Tallgrass.
yes, and that's where I took the price for tall grasses and just said, well, I assumed they were, and it's a lot bigger.
Really? That area just doesn't look
That's why I made the mistake too, so.
interesting.
So, yeah, no, Sunrise is a postage stamp, right? I mean, it's,
We did what we had to work with.
Well, there's not a lot of land there. I mean, we're bound. Yeah.
I mean, we needed to have something, but it's not what we would prefer, right? All right, so thank you for that on number 10, and then number 11, any tree board items?
Yep, so the ash tree packets went out, or they were available for pickup last week on Wednesday. And then, we'll have a bid opening, I believe, next week, Wednesday. That's really about all we have so
Awesome.
far.
I do have one request
What's that?
on the current neighborhood where you've marked everything. I don't know if something can be sent out to the, or if it was part of the original letter, maybe, but I just have
Well,
Cause some people, I'm sure, don't know still what's going on.
yeah, everyone who's said they're treating, I've told them they can pull their ribbons off. The ones that are still on are probably going, so they'll be gone when the tree goes.
All right, I just know there's, every once in a while I see assorted ones floating around the neighborhood, just through kids, adults or otherwise, so.
Yeah, and
Just
the ribbons,
wanted-
it shouldn't matter, we have a whole list with
Okay.
every address and every tree that's going, and,
All right,
you know,
awesome. Well, so looking forward to seeing what those results are. And I did happen to see marked trees with tags on them, so I know people have been, the ones who've chosen to do stuff, I know have been treating them, so. Anyways, last thing I'll say about that is I've been really happy about how that plan's evolved and the progress we've made at it as a community, because like if you look at places like Canton, other smaller communities like us, I know they are really struggling with this issue, and they're having a debate in Canton right now as to whether or not that's a city cost or a private homeowner cost and all that stuff.
Kinda late for that debate, isn't it?
I don't claim to know the details, but I saw some headlines on that in some other articles, so kudos to staff and
Yeah, thanks, Devin.
council for helping that get on the road when we did, so there's communities that are not on top of it, and they're really struggling with trying to answer it now, so.
People get really sentimental about that.
Trees, that's because trees are a good thing, Barb. All right.
We're working on the Mayor's Street, third, is it third? And he must be on a corner. He's losing a bunch of trees, and he said, I didn't really think it would bother me, but it's kind of bothering me.
Yeah, I'll tell you this story after we're done. All right, is there, our next meeting will be, where are you, May? Trying to find you. Yep, no, yeah, 15, thank you. 5:15, I'm assuming everyone's good with that still, all right. With that, I'll take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
All in favor? We're adjourned.